I thought I knew who I was doing business with. But when the bank called and asked why I had transferred $500,000 to an unknown account, I realized that someone had decided to leave me empty-handed. This wasn't just a scam, it was an attempt to erase me from the face of the earth. I started from nothing. My name is Michael Foster, and 7 years ago, I was just another software developer with a dream in Boston. I worked 60-hour weeks at a tech firm that undervalued me, spending my nights coding what I believed would revolutionize supply chain management. Every penny I saved went straight back into my vision: server costs, software licenses, prototype development. For 3 years, I lived in a studio apartment with furniture from Goodwill, eating ramen and working until my eyes burned. Sometimes I'd fall asleep at my desk, waking up with keyboard imprints on my cheek. But I believed in what I was building. SupplyLink wasn't just another tracking system, it could predict inventory needs before companies even realized they had them. By year 4, I had a working prototype and 2 clients who'd taken a chance on me. I'd quit my day job, converted my apartment into an office, and slept on a pull-out couch. Those first clients led to 5 more, then 10. I hired 2 developers and moved into a small office space in Cambridge. We were growing, but slowly. That's when Tom Mercer appeared. He found me at a tech conference in Chicago where I was desperately trying to network. I couldn't afford a booth, so I was working the room with business cards and a tablet demo. Most people brushed me off after 30 seconds. Not Tom. He watched my entire presentation, asked intelligent questions, and then invited me to dinner. "You've got something special here, Mike," he said over steaks I couldn't afford. "But you're thinking too small." Tom was everything I wasn't. Polished, Harvard Business School, connections throughout the industry. His smile came easy, and people naturally gravitated toward him. He had worked with 3 successful startups and had the Rolex and tailored suits to prove it. "I can bring in the big clients," he explained. "I can get you in front of Walmart, Target, Amazon. But more importantly, I can bring capital." 2 weeks later, he introduced me to investors who pumped $2 million into SupplyLink. We moved to a real office in downtown Boston. I hired a team of developers, sales staff, and customer support. Tom became my partner, taking 30% equity for his connections and another $1 million he personally invested. For 18 months, everything was perfect. Our client list grew from local businesses to national chains. Revenue quadrupled. Tom handled the business side while I focused on improving the product. We were featured in Forbes' Startups to Watch. There was talk of acquisition offers. The first hint of trouble came so subtly I almost missed it. An email from Carter Supply, a key client in Atlanta, asking about the new payment terms. I hadn't changed any payment terms. "Just a misunderstanding," Tom assured me when I mentioned it. I negotiated better rates with them, but the contract language confused them. "I'll handle it." I trusted him and went back to coding. A month later, our accountant mentioned discrepancies in our quarterly reports. Some numbers didn't match up with our bank statements. Again, Tom waved it away. "Paula doesn't understand our new financial structure," he said. "I've set up some specialized accounts to maximize our tax benefits. It's all above board." I didn't question him. He was the business guy, I was the tech guy. This was why we had partnered up. Then came the call from Jenkins at First National Bank. "Mr. Foster, I'm calling to verify the recent transfer of $487,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. This is unusual activity for your business account." My blood ran cold. I didn't authorize any transfer. "Well, the paperwork has your signature on it. But given the amount, we wanted to verify directly." I thanked him, hung up, and immediately went digging. The signature was forged, a good forgery, but not mine. I pulled up our banking records and found a pattern of smaller transfers over the past 3 months, all to different accounts I didn't recognize. That night, I stayed late at the office. I waited until everyone had left and used my master access to go through Tom's emails. What I found made me physically ill. Tom had created a shell company called Supply Chain Solutions. He had been approaching our clients, telling them we were restructuring and needed to update their contracts. The new contracts routed payments to his company instead of ours. He had already transferred half our client base without my knowledge. I found draft documents for a board resolution that would dilute my shares in the company from 70% to 15%. The document claimed I had approved the issuance of new shares to strategic investors, all entities controlled by Tom. It was dated for next week's board meeting. I discovered emails to our developers offering them positions at his new company. He was planning to gut our entire technical team. It wasn't just theft, it was a complete takeover. He was going to leave me with an empty shell while walking away with everything I'd built. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made calls. First to Sarah Goldberg, my college roommate who had become one of Boston's top corporate attorneys. I explained everything and sent her the evidence. Don't confront him yet, she advised. We need to secure everything first. By morning, I had a game plan. I went to work as usual, nodded at Tom when he came in whistling, and pretended nothing was wrong. After he left for a client meeting, which I now knew was with my clients, I called an emergency meeting with our head of IT. I need you to revoke Tom's access to all systems immediately. Say it's a security audit if anyone asks. Next, I went to the bank in person. With Sarah's help, I removed Tom as a signatory on all accounts and froze any transfers over $1,000 without my personal approval. The bank manager looked concerned when I showed him evidence of the unauthorized transfers. We'll need to report this to the authorities, he said. Not yet, I replied. But soon. I spent the afternoon gathering every piece of evidence I could find. The forged signatures. The shell companies. The diverted client payments. The attempted share dilution. I made copies of everything. At 5:30, my phone rang. It was Tom. Mike. How about dinner tonight? There's something important I want to discuss. Morton's at 8. His voice was casual, friendly. As if he hadn't been systematically destroying me. Sounds great, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'll meet you there. Morton's Steakhouse was dimly lit and crowded with Boston's business elite. Tom was already at a corner table when I arrived, nursing a glass of scotch. He stood and gave me his trademark smile and handshake. Mike. Good to see you. Ordered you a bourbon, neat. I sat down and looked at him. This man who had been like a brother to me. Who had been in my home, met my family, knew my dreams. Who had planned to take it all away. So what's this important discussion? I asked, not touching the drink. He leaned forward. I've been thinking about our growth strategy. We're at a critical juncture, and I believe we need to restructure. His eyes gleamed with excitement as if he were offering me a gift. I've drawn up some documents for the board meeting next week. Some changes that will really position us for acquisition. I nodded slowly. Restructure. You mean like how you restructured our client contracts to pay your shell company instead of Supply Link? His smile flickered, but only for a moment. I'm not sure what you mean. Supply Chain Solutions. Your company in the Caymans. The one that's received nearly $500,000 of our money. Tom leaned back, his expression changing from confusion to calculation. After a moment, he shrugged. Business is business, Mike. You're brilliant with code, but you've always been naive about how things really work. I saw an opportunity. To steal my company. He chuckled. To optimize a situation. Look, I could have taken everything already, but I didn't. I'm offering you a way to stay involved. Generous of you, I said, and reached into my briefcase. I pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the table. I've compiled some light reading for you. He flipped open the folder, his confidence unwavering until he began to see the contents. Copies of the forged documents. Screenshots of his emails. Bank records. A letter from Sarah Goldberg's law firm detailing the illegality of his actions. His face paled slightly, but he recovered quickly. This doesn't prove anything. And without me, you'll lose all those connections I brought in. I slid a final document across the table. As of 4 p.m. today, you have been removed as an officer of Supply Link. Your access to all company systems has been revoked. Your company credit cards have been cancelled. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. You can't just push me out, Mike. I own 30% of the company. Actually, you don't. I pointed to a section in the document. The original investment agreement had a clause about fraudulent activity. Your shares are forfeit. This will never hold up in court, he said, but I could see the first flicker of real concern in his eyes. Maybe not. But these will. I slid one final sheet across the table. It was a printout of an email I had sent earlier that day to the IRS, the SEC, and the FBI, detailing his financial crimes with all the supporting evidence attached. For the first time, Tom's carefully constructed facade crumbled. He stared at the paper, then at me. You wouldn't. I already did. They'll investigate you too. The company might not survive. I'm prepared for that. Tom's hand shook slightly as he reached for his scotch and drained it. You don't understand what you've done. I understand exactly what I've done. I've stopped you from stealing everything I've built. He leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. I have friends, Mike. Powerful friends. This isn't over. I stood up. Actually, Tom, it is. The FBI will be contacting you tomorrow. I suggest you call a good criminal attorney. As I walked out of Morton's, I felt no triumph, only a hollow exhaustion. 7 years of work had nearly been stolen from under me. The man I considered a friend and mentor had been plotting my professional execution. The next 2 months were a nightmare of legal meetings, depositions, and damage control with clients. But surprisingly, when they learned what had happened, most stayed loyal. My transparency about the situation actually strengthened many relationships. The FBI investigation moved quickly. They found Tom had done similar things to 2 previous business partners. The pattern was always the same: find promising startups, integrate himself, then gradually siphon away assets and clients. 4 months after our dinner at Morton's, Tom was indicted on 27 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. He was denied bail as a flight risk. I testified at his trial, looking him in the eye as I described his betrayal. He stared back, still somehow maintaining that confident smile, as if this too was just a temporary setback in his master plan. The jury took less than 6 hours to find him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. A month after the sentencing, his Beacon Hill brownstone went up for auction to pay restitution to his victims. I attended out of curiosity and found myself bidding. Perhaps it was a desire for closure, or maybe something darker, a need to claim some trophy from this ugly chapter. Whatever the reason, I won the auction for far less than market value. No one else seemed to want a home associated with such a public scandal. The day I got the keys, I walked through the empty rooms that had once been filled with Tom's expensive furniture and artwork. I found myself in his home office, standing where he had likely plotted my downfall. I renovated the entire house except for that office. I kept it exactly as it was, as a reminder. Sometimes, late at night, I sit in there and think about how close I came to losing everything, and how much I lost anyway: my trust, my innocence about how the world works. SupplyLink survived. In fact, we thrived once Tom's negative influence was removed. 2 years later, we were acquired by a tech giant for $220 million. I walked away with enough money to never work again, though I've already started a new company. I still live in Tom's house. People think it's strange, but I find it fitting. Every morning when I wake up, I remember that success is fragile, trust must be earned continuously, and sometimes the greatest threats come with the warmest smiles. Tom still writes to me from prison sometimes. Always the same message: business is business. I never write back.